Mike Stella,
What's
dude.
up?
Okay, first, show everyone your angles that you got here.
Listen, I'm a man of many talents, therefore a man of many angles. Just like that.
And
Just
that's a
like
great.
that.
So where did you get that background?
The background is actually I just put this up, this like soundproof padding. If you look online, that shit's very expensive. I found one item on Amazon that was like peel and stick like walls. In fact, I'll show you like if I go to camera two, like you can see like my whole little oops, it's a little tight over here. Hold on. Like my whole setup over there, which is where my podcast studio is. So I put these black paddings on the wall. They were peel and stick. Uh, they were like $60 or $70 for a set of eight of them, and I think I used like 16 in here, top and bottom. But they were pretty easy just to stick up there.
Why do you do
The
that? The sound quality? Does it make it that
look.
much better? The
I
look.
don't I don't know if it matters for the sound quality, to be honest with you, all that much. I think it matters more for I think it looks better, to be honest with you. And even if it does help a little bit with sound, which is fine because obviously I got the gym right outside my office, so anything that helps kind of muffle that is usually a net positive. So,
Dude, that's great. So Brooker and I both started off. We both had headsets and we both had microphones and like mic stands and shit.
yeah,
And dude, it just made no difference in the sound quality. It was
interesting.
yeah, it was like a pain in the ass for Brooker, and he's
Right.
always traveling the fucking world. So
Yeah.
like he never brings a shit. Now he just speaks into his computer.
I mean, like I think, as you get into the tech stuff, like does it really make it if you're like an audio engineer? I'm sure it makes a difference for like editing and stuff, but for like content creation, for like what we're doing it for, maybe it doesn't matter as much. I don't know. I definitely notice a difference, and usually when people ask me like, what camera should I get to film my content, I'm like, don't start with video, start with audio. If you can clean up your audio on your content, that usually does a little bit better, I think personally, than or that matters maybe a little bit more. Um, but yeah, I mean, sometimes I'll just use the headset mic and people can't really tell the difference. So you might be right. It could
Yeah.
all just be an illusion that just makes us spend more money.
Dude, you're really I'm impressed. This
I appreciate that. I thought I impressed you before with like my, sports medicine and training knowledge, but I guess my tech acumen is even better.
yeah, it's I'm so man, I'm borderline autistic. So it's like I'm only good at a couple of things. Like to see people that are like good at like I mean you're charismatic, you're good with
I
this stuff, you're
appreciate
good
that.
on camera, and like now you're like all digital, like you can do a lot of things. Like shit. Like
Well,
that's
listen, I think, I bought into the whole idea like Gary Vee back in the day. It was like every company's a media company. So I kind of like, but I also have raging undiagnosed ADHD. So like when I get into something, it's like I just go fucking all the way in. Like I go way down the rabbit holes to the point where it's like I get burnt out with it. So like, once I get like, oh, cameras and I start learning about like codecs and video quality, I'm like, oh, that's fucking cool, man. I got to learn more. And I just can't help and then I'm up to, 4 a.m. on my phone, like putting my own health on the back burner, just making sure I know everything it is to know about whatever that singular thing that obsessed me lately was. So
You'd be a good hunter-gatherer, Mike.
I
You know that.
I think I would probably make a good hunter gatherer, but luckily I don't have to do that. One of my
so
favorite books though, Sapiens. Love that book.
yeah.
Oh yeah. Huge fan.
What books do you read?
I mean, I mostly read nonfiction stuff.
Yeah.
I'm not a big fiction guy, although maybe I did go through like a phase like in my late teens, early 20s where I was really into like Lord of the Rings and that kind of stuff and read all the books. But outside of that, I'm mostly a nonfiction. I love stuff about, human origin. I love stuff about psychology, pain, just like performance optimization, like anything that kind of helps somebody live a little bit better. I'm all into that stuff. Self-help books, I guess you could call them.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and how old are you now?
I am 39. I just turned 39 in December.
I'm turning 39. Fuck, I'm turning 39 tomorrow, Brooker.
Oh, dude, happy birthday.
Holy shit.
How
Yeah.
does that feel, right? It's your last lap in the 30s. I was like, oh, that's kind of weird.
I'll tell you what, I freaked out when I turned 20 because I had just gotten cut from like a baseball team, or maybe I just got cut, something like that. And I was having like a fucking meltdown in college. Like, yo, I'm a fucking nobody. Like, what?
Right.
I'm a fucking loser. But like when I turned 30, I didn't give a shit, and when I turned 40, I'm not gonna give a shit. But for some reason, 20 freaked me the fuck out.
Well, it mattered more to you then. I guess it was more a part of your identity now than it is now. So you're more
It-
attached to it.
yeah, it's the age thing. It's way more helpful now because I remember when I was I had started off at DeFranco's and I was a trainer there, or I was a trainee there. Then I became a trainer. And
Okay.
when I first started training guys there, I was helping Joe with the NFL crew. Like that's kind of how like I started. I started right away with the big dogs.
That's awesome.
And I'll never forget like Dave Deal and all those guys are older than me. You know,
Right.
I'm fresh out of college. They're all older than me. And I said like, "All right, guys, let's go. Let's get this going." And Dave Deal looked at me and says, "If you're going to fucking talk to us, you better deepen that fucking voice." I was like, "Yeah, yeah, you're probably right." And now I mean, I'm older than all of them. And it makes it a lot easier. Like now I'm like the weird wise guy. Before I was like just some
Right.
fucking cunt wise guy. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like it
You were
was
like the young guy that was smart that everybody's like, we don't trust you because you're young and smart, right? And then they kind of hold you at arm's distance. And then as you get older, people are like more inclined to, yeah, I've noticed that too. But the other thing that comes with that is maybe undesirable is like, do you ever notice that all of your movie references that you think are hilarious are just no longer funny? It's like if you're referencing movies from like the early 2000s, like I was teaching a rock tape class, like this must have been like 2 years ago. And I always used to make this joke, like, hey, if you could tape a knee, you could tape a shoulder. It's like if you could dodge a wrench, you could dodge a ball. And like everybody in this, I was teaching to of a physical therapy school, and they all sat there and looked at me like I was fucking crazy. Like, what are you talking about? Like, what do you mean? Should I write down about the wrench? Like, what does that mean? Like thinking it was like this esoterical like metaphor for something important in sports medicine. I was like, it was a fucking dodgeball reference, and all of you are 20, and you don't know what that means because it came out before you were born. So that's fucked up. But that happened. Now I'm the old guy in the
yeah.
room. What happened? When did that happen? I don't understand.
Dude, that happens with me in music. I like old
Right.
school like hardcore rap, like
Okay.
but like real rap. Not like the
Like
bullshit.
90s and early 2000s hip hop. That's what you
Dude,
like.
like not but
Right.
not this Drake bullshit that's been coming out. We have like a no
God.
Drake policy and everyone's like, why is there a no Drake policy? I was like, because he fucking sucks. That's why.
I am
It's
going to steal
fucking
that
awful.
because every time I hear Drake come on in my gym, I want to rinse my mouth out with buckshot. That's I'm like, can we please put some fucking Creed on? Thank you. This is my gym. I pay the bills. I want Creed and Seether and fucking post grunge metal. That's what I want. I don't ever get my way though. It's fine.
So I mean, bro, you in my view, you kind of came out of nowhere, but you're 39 years old, like your
Mhm.
Instagram, like it just fucking started blowing up and I didn't see things that I didn't like. I remember messaging you. I'm like, "Hey, bro, like you're doing fucking great. Keep it up." Like as if my opinion
Yeah.
means anything.
Right.
But like I shit, like I was like, "Oh, the guy seems to care about body work. He seems because you don't see a lot of like a lot of body workers I see online. They're very woo woo,
Yes.
and it's so I'm a licensed acupuncturist as well,
Oh, I
and
didn't know that.
yeah, but like acupuncture, like the people,
Similar.
bro, the people in my school hated me.
Oh
Like
yeah.
I had no friend. Well, I had a couple
Right.
of friends, but like most of my school just despised me because like I'm not into the energy stuff. I'm
Right.
very pragmatic with things. And it just I don't connect with those types of people. But then I saw your stuff. I was like, he makes sense of things. Like I can be friends with this guy. This guy's so
Yeah, man. I go ahead.
no, where did you start off? You were an athletic trainer?
I am an athletic trainer by trade. Yeah,
Okay.
an
And
ATC.
talk to me about like where you started and where you are right now. Just give me like a, elevator pitch.
So I started like a lot of athletic trainers. I was an injured athlete. I blew out my knee in high school. I was an All-American lacrosse player. So I blew out my
You're
ACL,
all American
PCL.
in high school?
Yeah, yeah.
So, Long Island
Well,
guy.
I'm a
Long
Long
Island.
Island guy. Yeah, exactly. Like that's what we do. We eat
Yeah.
bagels, we eat pizza, and we play lacrosse. Like that's what we do. We go to the beach, But so I ACL, PCL, MCL, meniscus, tibial plateau fracture. The official diagnosis was fucked. So I blew the whole knee out, dislocated it, had it reconstructed. At that time, I was thinking about going into like engineering or architecture or something along those lines, and I did an internship, but I fucking hated it just because it was boring. Um, and like again, there's the ADHD thing where it's like I just couldn't wrap my head around sitting in a cubicle for 10 hours a day. So during the rehab process, I was like, wow, sports medicine thing, I really like this. And Marist College was the last Division I school to offer me any scholarship to play lacrosse after I hurt my knee. And they also happen to have an athletic training program. So it really just worked out kind of coincidentally like that. So I did my 4 years. I got my undergrad in athletic training and sports medicine. And then I worked for the Florida Gators for a couple of years. And then I went and did my graduate work. So I did 2 masters, one in business administration, so an MBA in sports management, and also one in exercise science. So I also came from like a personal training background. So while I was going through that rehab process, my PT at the time had like a little gym. They had a whole gym in their clinic that nobody ever used. Like it was empty all the time. So I started going in there as part of my rehab for my knee to start to do those later stage strength training drills and, work on my strength and my conditioning. And then it turned into the owner of the clinic was like, hey, if you go get this personal training certification, I'll go pay for it. And you can help me out and get your hours for school and also, make a couple bucks. I was like, okay, that works for me. So I started with a lot of personal training stuff, went through my 4 years of sports medicine. And I was kind of the same way. I was like the black sheep. I'm like, icing injuries doesn't make sense to me. Like these mechanisms don't make sense. Here's this research. And my program director hated me for it because I was always not trying to kick the pot, but I was curious. I wanted to know like what the reasons were, Like you can't just tell me, oh, ice injuries and not tell me why. Like I need to know why. So I always had this kind of hybridized approach or really appreciated the strength and conditioning side of rehab, or really always thought that rehab should look something like approximating what you would do with an athlete who's getting ready to perform. And that ultimately was my story, which was I never got back to my prior level of performance. I was always in college, I was always the guy got hurt. I had injury after injury after injury just because everything kind of steamrolled. It was like compensated for the knee. I hurt my back and my hip, my ankles. Like I just had constant issues. And then truthfully, in my 20s, it was a lot of just my own selfish motivation to figure out my own body and what was going wrong with me, why I couldn't get back to my prior level of performance, why I was in chronic pain despite having done everything everybody told me to do and then some. So I was just super frustrated, depressed, isolated myself. I, was struggling financially because I don't know if you guys know about athletic training. Doesn't pay particularly well, even though it's a cool job. Like here I am running out of the tunnel for a national championship national championship football game, working with those athletes. And then 2 years later, I'm folding towels in a PT clinic. I'm like, what the fuck happened to me? And so the movement underground is really my solution to that, so I was really struggling with the money side of athletic training. So I took a job at a PT clinic, right? So all of a sudden now I'm working with high level athletes. Now I'm like working with old people and like folding towels and like washing tables. It was just miserable. So I was like, I could do this better. I know I can do this better. So I broke off and started my own business in 2014. And 10 years later, I'm an overnight success.
Yeah.
What did you start with then, Mike? You started with your own facility or you started doing content straight away?
So I had a friend of mine who was a strength coach from Marist, and him and I partnered on our first facility. So I ran the sports medicine side. At the time, I was calling it Recovery Lab, and then he was running the strength and conditioning side. So, we always had these like handshake agreements for like, okay, the milestones that, we wanted the sports medicine side to hit. Because at the time I had no money to really invest in a business. So he put the money, I was like the sweat equity guy. And so what ends up happening is I got fucked is what happens. The long story short, when you're on the wrong side of the handshake and the bank accounts, that's what happens. So I didn't start with content straight away. I started with just the clients that I had trained and kind of, kids that I had worked with at the college level that started to hire me privately. And then slowly but surely, I read Gary Vee's first book and I started putting content out probably around 2014, 15, I started putting up a lot of stuff on YouTube. And ironically, my YouTube is what kind of started blowing up first, which is really what I used to do is just like literally put a GoPro on a suction cup on the wall and just film my entire session from beginning to end, no editing. and just like, this is what I'm doing. This is why I'm doing it. It was like a fly on the wall type of thing. And those videos started doing really, really, really well. And then once Instagram started catching a little steam, I started going all in on Instagram only because it was just easier to edit those videos. Because like me editing a YouTube video would take me like 3 or 4 days to edit a 40-minute YouTube video because it was just so much work, like to cut out all the little scenes and learn how to edit and put on an intro and subtitles and all that kind of shit. So Instagram was just way more appealing because it was quicker, it was easier. I could put out more content in less time. And then this past year, so I started in that facility. Then we split up. I got my own space where I was renting out of a gym and just doing the sports medicine and rehab thing. And then I was there for 4 or 5 years. And then we opened up this space, which is about 5,000 square feet. We opened it up a little over a year ago.
What year were you in Florida?
I was there during like the Tim Tebow era. So I was there like 2008, 7, 8.
So you had a couple of my guys. You know Sharif Floyd?
I know Sharif. I don't know him well.
And how about Justin Tradow?
Justin Trotter, that name sounds more familiar. I was mostly with track and field, and then I just helped with football. So football,
Okay.
I was originally supposed to be like the GA for the football team, and then they took that position and absolved it into a different position. So I ended up getting hired for track and field, which again, at that time, I was working with 14 Olympians from like 9 different countries on that track program. We were number 2 in the nation.
Who was
So
the coach then?
still is the same coach as Mike Holloway, but at the time,
Okay.
the football team was Urban Meyer.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was like the Tim Tebow, Aaron Hernandez, the Pouncey twins, like that '08 national championship team. In fact, if you actually watch did you check out the Netflix documentary, Swamp Kings?
Yeah, I heard so many of the stories. I was really let down by the documentary.
I could tell you that the weight room where they were like, oh, we're going to weed out all the non-hackers in the weight room. I can tell you that was the very PG version of what
Yeah.
what actually went down.
Yeah.
Because I remember being in that weight room being like, I'm going to go to fucking prison for this. If I'm going to be complicit in abuse on some level and be in jail. But yeah, you'll see me like walking around the background, like pushing Gatorade carts and no goatee, way more hair. But it was
All right.
cool. It's a really cool experience.
All right, now dude, I'm fascinated by the whole like your Gary V approach and it's really impressive. I wanted to ask you a ton about body work, but
Mhm.
like I'm really interested in this shit right now. So
Sure.
what's your timeline? How much time you got?
Whatever you guys want.
Awesome. Good.
I'm chilling.
All right. So we'll fucking get to it. The the first off, as soon as you said the business partner, I was like, oh well, someone got fucked, and it sounds like it was you. It's more advice, guys.
Man, is that so that's the classic story, man. It
Dude,
happens.
yeah. I whenever people tell me that they're opening a gym with a friend, I said, why? You know, first off, why are you opening a gym? Secondly, don't have a partner. There's not enough money to split. There's
Not enough meat on the
profit.
bone. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a low margin business.
Bro, it really is. A perfectly run gym, as I'm learning, is 30% margins, owner exited.
Yep.
Dude, I mean, I'm owner in it. And you know what I mean? Like I
Yeah.
coach, I'm on the floor all the time. I think last year we were 39% margins, and this year I'm like 35 or 36.
Right.
So like it just gets thinner and thinner and thinner. I went over all my numbers. I missed my goal big time by what I wanted to do with the adults, but all my coaches made more money. We generated way more money this year. I think totally we generated, I forget, but over 6 figures we generated more, and I didn't make much more money.
Mm-hmm.
Like but all my coaches made way more money, which is awesome. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like I'm happy about that.
Which was your goal?
That was my goal. That was my goal. But like people don't understand. Like the gym business fucking sucks. It's not, you could make more money as a personal trainer than you can as a gym owner. Majority of the time.
I think I disagree with that, but
Okay.
only because I think it depends on the owner, and I think it depends on the situation. Some people, like I also do coaching, like coaching for other clinic owners that are looking to like, and again, I have like a unique setup. I call this like a hybrid practice. So it's like a totally vertically integrated physical therapy and performance setting together.
That's where you can
So,
make some really good money because the
so I
PT.
have, right, the one-on-one PT side, which we do
Yeah.
100% cash pay. So we don't do any
Really?
insurance. Yeah, we do all cash pay. And then,
You don't get
we have,
pushback?
of course I get pushback, but again, part of what I do is like, I always just bring it back to like, well, what are you looking for? Are you looking for convenience and cost? Are you looking for a result? Because if you're looking for the cheapest option that's the most convenient for you, I'm not your guy. If you're looking to get this problem solved and not have to see people again for it, I am your guy for that. So what it'll be. And most people are like, oh, I've already been down the rabbit hole of being ignored at PT and not getting a result. So maybe I'll invest in it this time, you know? So, and again, that took some time. When I first started in 2014, there really was not much of a precedent for cash pay therapy outside of
No.
the insurance world. So I kind of sailed into that world really without any knowledge of how that was going to work out. And I made plenty of mistakes along the way, but now I'm so grateful that that's what we decided to do. And truthfully, it was because I had to do it that way because I'm an athletic trainer. Because, insurance reimbursement, while it is possible for athletic training, it's very difficult because the carriers just don't want to, the companies just don't want to pay. They're happy with the rehab services they provide. Therefore, they're not going to pay for anything outside of that. So, for us, it was a little bit of an uphill battle, but I wouldn't trade. Could I make more money if I had no staff and no facility? I think now I probably could, like net more for myself. But the day to day, like having my staff here, mentoring them, seeing them succeed, to your point, watching them grow. Like what you just did was like, okay, yeah, your cost came up, but now your ceiling is so much higher that, and again, if you have like that core group that's well compensated and they buy the mission and they believe in what you're doing, how do you put a price on that?
100%.
Your earning potential on that is way more than, oh, let me just keep a low paid coach and I'll just have a lot of turnover. And I think that's where people get fucked in the gym industry is they're so cost conscious that they can't differentiate what's investing in their business and what's a cost. Because you can have an employee that's a great investment. You can have an employee that is cost. You know what I mean? It depends on the employee.
Mike, is it okay to talk like real granular numbers, like in terms of like how much you split in the cost of sessions towards your coaches, how like percentages going to your coaches, how much going back into the business, stuff like
Right.
that?
So I give all my so on the clinical side, on the one-on-ones, it's a lot easier to track, because I look at what the value of a session is, a session serviced. So what I try to do is get my staff pay to around 50% max of what they're going to bring in for the year. Right. But I also incentivize them to up that number because it's directly correlated to their pay structure. So I give them like a base rate, which is their base hourly rate, and then a booked rate on the clinical side. So when they're booked, they're getting a much higher rate. So it kind of incentivizes them to, it's not a true eat what you kill model, but it's incentivizing them to sell more care, continuity plans, sell more sessions, book their own appointments, right? So it's not just completely demolishing our front desk or leaving it all on the front desk to get those sessions booked out. So I try to incentivize the performance indicators so that they're helping the business, but it also is something that each employee can kind of run with it as much or as little as they want, and each of my guys does it, they each do a little bit of a different job in terms of sales and like how they go about it. But I try to just build that framework for them and let them thrive within it and just do it based off numbers. But I think for the clinical side, one-on-ones, 50% is kind of like the max, honestly, unless they're bringing people through the door. And I think that's kind of the big difference is like if a coach is just servicing clients, that is a much different role than a coach who's bringing new members or new people through the door. And so obviously if somebody's bringing through the door, I give them a flat, basically finder's fee on that.
Cool. And then what about price per sessions? I mean, are you more high end? I mean, you're bringing a lot of specialist knowledge and obviously that's a bit as well, or because you don't use insurance, is it still quite economical for people?
So what we kind of do a less is more approach. So instead of seeing people 3 times a week for rehab, I typically will see a client once per week. And then we use this hybrid approach where we also have an app. We use Train Heroic, where we program all of their rehab in the app, the videos, the support that way. So they come in, they get that hands-on experience, right? We're going over their case in detail. They have a one-on-one session with the same therapist to go through their exercise, their rehab, where they're learning what they're doing for the week in person, one-on-one, and then they're just kind of executing it on their own. Now, some clients we have, like, listen, I'm in New York, right? Long Island. Some people are very affluent here, and they're like, no, I want to come in more and have the one-on-one. Okay, great. Here's a high-ticket package that has X amount of sessions in it. You can use them as you see fit. But my whole approach is I would rather see somebody less often for a longer period of overall time so we could actually progress them through the process. And generally speaking, it comes out to be less than what they would pay for their co-pays or co-insurance anyway, in some cases, not in all cases, but, so around, we're depending on the package, somewhere around $250 an hour on the one-on-one side of stuff. And then obviously all of our training is probably similar to you guys, like semi-private, mostly small group personal training. So that's fairly affordable, I would say. And so our goal is to get people out of the one-on-one model into the semi-private model, which is way more sustainable. And that's kind of how we feed our gym and we built our membership that way. Because remember, outside of a year ago, I only did sports medicine. Even though I'm a strength coach by trade as well, I always had these like strategic partnerships where it's like, okay, my buddy Warren's running all the strength and conditioning, that's his business. And we're just B2B partners. And then this leap with the Movement Underground, like 2.0, we took the leap and got our own space and built out the whole strength and conditioning side. And I just brought that all in-house.
Okay. Now, there's a hierarchy of hiring. A chiropractor can hire anyone. A physical therapist can hire an acupuncturist and a massage therapist and an athletic trainer.
Mm-hmm.
Acupuncturist can't technically hire anyone, maybe a massage therapist, right? And an MD can hire everyone.
Mm-hmm.
How do you now? One of the reasons they do that is to like keep people away from being able to open these businesses without having the license. How do you open a physical therapy? Is this a physical therapy clinic and you hire PTs? How do you do that?
So technically speaking, because I'm cash pay and we don't go through insurance, we're a non-medical facility. Therefore, it's kind of like not a free-for-all. Obviously, we still operate within our state practice acts, and that's obviously going to change also state to state. Not every state's the same with those laws and rules. So in New York, you can own a physical therapy company without being a physical therapist. But you can't bill, obviously, unless you have an NPI number, which is a National Provider Identifier number. So as I grew, and now I have 2 PTs on staff, so we still just do cash pay, and technically that's called a wellness visit. So if they're billing as a wellness visit, they could just bill cash, and that's what we do. We're going to add a super bill model where they're still paying out of pocket, and then the PTs can provide them a super bill with their license number on it. And as long as they have an active prescription from a doctor, they can then submit that to their insurance company and get reimbursed directly after the fact. So that's going to be kind of our way that we can kind of take insurance, but not really. People will still have to pay out of pocket up front, and then they'll get reimbursed directly, whatever their insurance benefit allows them to get.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's okay. So this model only works, and it'd be the same thing in New Jersey. I haven't dove.
If you hired a PT and they were doing cash, that's a wellness model, and you could absolutely do that. You could hire a PT in your gym. As soon as it becomes medical, where you're doing Medicare specifically, that's where all the rules come into play. Because Medicare is obviously a federal program. That's a government program, but that also sets the standard for how the private insurance carriers also are supposed to run their billing practices. Again, not all of them do that. As we clearly can see, there's a lot of turmoil in the insurance industry, as it were. But again, traditionally speaking, physical therapy reimbursements are down every year. It's making it harder and harder for insurance clinics to make enough money. And that's why you see 4, 5, 6 patients per therapist per hour.
Yep.
And the reality is people are getting neglected, and they know that. They know they're being neglected. They're not stupid. So when we kind of start to present to our model, which is like, hey, yeah, you're going to pay out of pocket, but now you're going to actually have this one-on-one experience, and we're going to work on your case, and we're going to cut this middleman out of the equation. And then once people have that experience for the first session or two, it's like, it's like flying first class for the first time. It's like, fuck, Like, how do I ever go back and sit with the plebs in steerage? You know what I mean? It's hard to go back once you have that really great one-on-one experience. It's the same thing for you guys, I'm sure. It's like you train somebody, it's hard for them to go back to Planet Fitness after that. You know, they're not going to get the same experience in that place.
Gotcha. Yeah. So I've been for years struggling with the idea of being able to get a PT on staff, but also it would have to be 100% cash, or the PT would have to be an owner in the business. And it just gets, again, it's another partner situation. It just gets very, very finicky. It's
Why,
weird.
if you wanted to take insurance and run it through that way and actually have a clinic type situation, you could
Yeah.
also just start another LLC, a separate LLC, and then that LLC is owned by Freak Strength, something
Hmm.
along those lines. Or if you're a C corp or an S corp now, you own the LLC,
Hmm.
and then you could figure it out that way. You know,
But I'd
there's
still need
plenty
the
of ways
billing
to
number.
manipulate it. Yeah, but
Yeah.
they would bill it. They would bill it out.
Hmm.
Or the hybrid model that I ran for years, which was go find a great PT that you think is awesome that wants to start their own business, groom them, come up with a split. Let
Yeah.
them do their thing and make it a win-win. I'm always looking for win-win scenarios.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to get over on anybody. If I can find a
100%.
win-win where I make a little scratch and they feel really good about it, they're making some money too. It's like I just met one of my clients is a personal trainer at another gym, known him for years. We literally just got done with a meeting because he wants to set up a little nutrition shop in my facility. And it's like, for me, it's like, I don't want to deal with inventory. I don't want to deal with counting this shit. I don't want to deal with selling a protein powder, you know, a protein unit that I'm making $5, $7 on or whatever it is. I'm like, listen, man, if you want to do it and give me a small percentage, have at it. It's carte blanche. Do your thing. I'll help you grow it. I'll point people in the direction, get you to help you move some units, but we could set up a win-win situation. That's what we just did. So
Yeah.
now I'm going to have a whole nutrition store in my facility that I don't have to really operate, and I can take a smaller percentage of that. But I also don't have any of the headache or the work or the administrative burden to do. So sometimes I just think of it in terms of that. It's like, what's the burden on you to, you know, reformat your business in a way that allows you to bring in a PT and then they work for you, versus bringing somebody in that maybe has a little bit of skin in the game. Now they're more motivated to go out there and do the work of bringing patients through the door,
Yep.
right? Which also then is exposure for you, and hopefully roll them into your training process after their rehab, and boom, that's a win-win. You're making
Yeah.
your money on the training. They're making more of their money on the one-on-one, on the treatment side of it. But I think it's a very hard synergistic thing. And if you find the right person, everything's negotiable at that point.
Yeah. Yeah.
You should do it though. You should absolutely do it because it's a force multiplier.
Hmm.
Because especially like think about like your churn, you know, like, oh, this, you know, Karen, you know, tweaked her back shoveling snow and she went to her doctor and the doctor said, oh, you got arrested for 6 weeks. So she calls you up. She's like, I need to pause my membership for 6 weeks. It's like, no, you don't. Yeah,
Seen it work the other way too. People have come in
absolutely.
sports medicine and then they've hung around for your S&C semi-privates.
And then it goes the other way now too. Like we just did a deal with a local travel baseball team. We have 85 new athletes we just onboarded in December. And, you know, just through these kids coming in and training, and now I got the parents signing up for table sessions and working with the PT while the kids training. I got these kids, the parents buying manual therapy packages with my massage therapist for extra recovery. So again, it just, you bring people in for whatever their desired, what they need. Everybody's got that thing in their head when they reach out. They're like, what do I need help with? So it's like you help them with that, but then you're opening them up to just bringing them into your community and other ways that you could potentially help them.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And I think one of the best models you could possibly have, as long as you're in the right environment for it, is you have a membership gym with the private training or the personal training ability and the group training ability, and then you have the physical therapy attached to it.
Mm-hmm.
And the PT, I mean, you're getting literal, and PTs get referrals from doctors, but then
Sure.
you have, it's literally the feeder system. And it's a can't miss. As long as you have a healthy gym, it is a can't miss. And you'll make more money on the PT than you will with the gym with a quarter of the clientele. Like it's a feeder system.
It's just interesting because they both have like their pros and cons, right? Where it's like the PT side, it's more staff the higher cost is the staff, but it requires way less space. 3 tables takes up way less space than a full gym setup for strength and conditioning, right? I'm also getting a higher price per session, and again, we try to make our semi-private pricing so that the gym is making, $400 an hour or more versus like what somebody can. So I think you have higher upside potential in the gym setting, and the gym setting has a little bit less cost associated with it in terms of staff, but more cost associated with it in terms of equipment and space.
Yeah.
Right. So they go really well together because you're going to reduce your churn, which is how many members you're losing for whatever reason, mostly due to injury or pain issues. Recently we just had 2 separate orthopedic surgeons reach out to us to kind of sit down for a meeting because we have a performance integration, and that's what they're looking for. Right? That's the new trend. It's like, oh shit. I pretty much gave up on marketing to ortho surgeons because they all either partly own the PT clinics they refer to, or they're part of these big giant corporate hospital systems where they are contractually obligated to refer within their network, even if they don't want to. And now all of a sudden I've got surgeons from big systems reaching out to me like, hey, we really love the fact that you have an integrated performance thing, and we're looking for something a little bit higher end for our athletes. I'm like, you're in the right place. So I think what we're starting to see is, because more of these hybrid models are popping up, that more people are aware of that as an option, and they're starting to seek it out. I think we're on the cusp of that. Even though, again, cash pay or PTs inside of a gym has been a thing for the last decade, I think now it's starting to become a little bit more mainstream, where it's not so surprising or new to somebody to see that type of model.